Secretary Boginski, thank you for joining us here on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you, Russell. It's wonderful to be here.
So you are entering a new created cabinet position at a time where lawmakers in the state really want to expand on our early childhood education programs and our outreach. What are some of the things that you want to accomplish as you walk in on day one?
Mhm. Well, the first thing, we're so excited. I'm so excited and honored, really, to be able to be the first cabinet secretary for the Early Childhood Education and Care Department. And the first thing we want to do is really welcome all the new staff coming from these two other departments and set a course for creating a cohesive and aligned prenatal to 5 early childhood system here in the state of New Mexico. So bringing everybody together, learning about each other's programs, and really looking at the opportunities to both leverage the knowledge that we have and to continue to learn and grow as we set out to really change the trajectory for whole populations of families and children across the state of New Mexico.
So you left DC, a place that was also struggling with poverty, to come to New Mexico, which is one of the poorest states in the nation. What are some of the things that you want to accomplish in terms of policy off the bat to try to address our poverty, especially among our youth?
Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the things that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has said from the beginning is she really wants to make sure that families have access to high quality childcare. They have access to preschool education that is of high quality. And so those are definitely two priorities that we want to make sure are achieved over the course of this first term of this administration. And we know that we can do it because we have incredible partners all over the state in our public schools and our private sector early childhood programs. And so those are some of the key priorities that we'll be working on. And we know that when children and families have a strong start and have access to the supports and resources they need, things we can help achieve great things, including breaking the cycle of poverty, helping the health and developmental and educational outcomes of young children. And so that is what this department's mission is to do, and to do it in partnership with our other cabinet secretaries and our private sector partners as well.
One of the things we have found is that there are some agencies competing against each other and sometimes not utilizing the resources that Head Start provides. One of your duties will be to streamline this process. What are some of the things that you have done in the past that prepare you for this?
Yes, I think my history, of course, in early childhood began in Head Start. So I have a strong connection and a strong affiliation with the work of Head Start. Something that we're going to do in this new department, and I should have said right out of the gate, we're so excited to have an assistant secretary for Native American early education and care. And we're going to put our Head Start state collaboration coordinator under her leadership. And we're going to be working across the state with our tribal early Head Start and childcare programs, but also all of our Head Start programs, because we have to leverage all the available funding that could come to New Mexico, whether it's federal money, state dollars, private sector dollars. And we know that Head Start works. It's a program that has proven to help families both achieve great things for themselves and break the cycle of poverty. So we plan to have Head Start very prominent in the office of the secretary, working with our tribal and our non-tribal early Head Start programs.
The Save the Children advocacy group recently released a report that said New Mexico is struggling nationally when it comes to things like graduation rates, childhood hunger, early childhood deaths. This is an enormous task for you. So what is at stake that we get all these programs organized and implemented so that we can tackle childhood poverty in our education? What's at stake here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot at stake and there's a lot of opportunity here. And I think the leadership in this state, both in the legislature and in the governor's office, and again, I can't emphasize enough all the private sector partners that have helped make this department a reality, have really, I think what we're going to be able to do to have programs prenatal to age 5 under one department, under one governance structure, we're going to be able to make sure that families have those seamless connections, those transition points where if they're at home visiting, they're learning about their child's development and they're able to connect with our FIT program. And maybe we find out that they really need access to childcare. So we're going to be more seamless in our ability to support families and our ability to work together across this prenatal to 5 system.
One of the things that we have found as early childhood education programs expand, not just in New Mexico, but nationwide, is that the staff for these initiatives tend to be paid less, whether it's in childhood education or daycare or even visiting services. What can be done to attract good qualified workers here, but also pay them a good wage that makes this a competitive field for them to get into?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Russell. And we're really excited that we've seated a new advisory council. It was part of the legislation that created the department, and we brought together about 35 or 40 individuals from across the state representing home visiting, early intervention, childcare. And they're going to work with us over the next 6 months to help us answer that question and really think deeply and strategically about what is it going to take and how can we make it happen here in New Mexico. We want people to say, I want to go to New Mexico. I want to work with young children. I want to be part of this movement to really change the trajectory for young children here in New Mexico.
Say I'm Andrew Carnegie or Bill Gates, and I come to you and say, I have a limited amount of funds, right? If money is not a factor, what would this department look like, and what kind of programs in your wish list would you implement?
You know, I think we want to make sure that families have access to childcare if that's what they need, that we have the best early intervention program and just continue to build on that. And that wherever children and families live, their community has the resources and assets they need to support them. You know, families live in communities, children live in families. And so it's about us as a State Department really taking those dollars from Carnegie or Gates and say, how can we build strong communities that support families so that families can support their children? And that is going to be everything from our Families First program, which does intensive case management, to our home visiting program that starts prenatally. These are great opportunities. We know the research is clear. You start strong at this period of life, and we see the outcomes, again, in health, education, economic outcomes. So there's a real opportunity here in New Mexico, one of only 4 departments like this in the country. So we're excited to be part of that movement.
New Mexico is one of the most rural states in the nation. We have a lot of our tribal communities live in rural areas. What can be done to make sure that these communities have access to some of these early childhood education initiatives and programs?
You know, I was planning a whole trip around the state just after the legislature wound up and the bill was signed. And of course, we broke right into the COVID public health emergency. And so, you know, I was looking forward to that opportunity to travel around and listen to local community people to hear, what are your ideas? What do you think it's going to take? And I think, again, I'll go back to that advisory council, and we have to make sure that programs and services are informed by families, by the communities in which they live, and that we can't have a one size fits all, but that we have to be able to design programs that meet the needs of families and communities and build on their strengths. The culture and the language of New Mexico is so strong.
The research is that early age is so instrumental in the formation of children. What would it look like if they were able to access programs and they're implemented correctly? What would happen to a child that has all those resources by the time they're in middle school or high school? What kind of student would we see?
Yeah, we're going to see students who, first of all, are excelling, you know, at 3rd grade. They're on track for their reading and their math. They're making friends. They're building good, strong peer-to-peer relationships. They can persist. They attend to their task. And even when things get tough, they struggle through it. They know how to resolve conflict. They know how to collaborate with others. These are some of the important foundational skills and development that happens in these early years. They're going to continue. They're not going to drop out. They're going to understand their value and their worth, continue to graduate. We just had the wonderful report come out of the LFC about our pre-K program here in New Mexico, seeing a $5.82 return for every dollar invested because of improved graduation rates among all New Mexico children and students. So I think those are the types of things we're going to see when we realize the promise of a strong prenatal to 5 early childhood system.
This was, of course, your first session, the special session just went out. January, there'll be another one. We're going to be facing probably some challenging times budget-wise. Have you thought about initiatives in the future that you would like to address legislatively that could achieve some of the goals that you've set out?
It's a great question, Russell, and I haven't right at this moment, but I think some of the things we're thinking about is how are we going to make sure that we're maximizing all funding available to New Mexico, whether it is through our federal Head Start program, whether it is through other grant opportunities. We know that we're going to need to bring more resources into the state to support this period of life, and I think just looking for the opportunities to really align the services and the programs. And so there may be some legislative initiatives that have to happen in order for that alignment to be more seamless for families. But we're going to be next week, we're going to be official, and we're going to be sitting down with an incredible leadership team. I feel so blessed and grateful for just the talented team, experienced team of individuals who are going to help lead this department into a very solid future.
When you're able to travel around the state after this pandemic, what are you hoping to find as you assess what needs further to be done in the state?
I think I'm interested to see how different communities approach the same challenges. They may have the same challenge, but they come together in different ways. When I was the Head Start Collaboration Director in Colorado under Governor Ritter, I had that opportunity. And that was one thing that struck me going down into the San Luis Valley versus the Grand Junction, the Western Slope. I want to do similarly here in New Mexico and see how does Las Cruces, how do they come together as a community to meet the challenging needs? Or up in, I did have a chance to visit Taos, but over in Hobbs, Carlsbad, down to Deming and Silver City. I'm excited to see just what is it that people bring together and how can we as a state department foster that and nurture that and really build a strong community to state connection.
Secretary, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, Russell. I really appreciated being here, and thank you for helping us launch and celebrate the new department.